What's up, YouTube? This is Amari from Team RFOS. We're here. Corey's here. Say hi, Corey.
What's good?
Alright, so we're here now and we want to give you a special little bit of information on this character right here. And as you know right now, Vegeta is currently the most popular leader in the meta, and I think that a lot of people could benefit from knowing a few tips that we may have from using him, on how to use him and how to play against him, more important. Since apparently he's going to stick around probably for the rest of this current set. And we got some big events coming up, so we want to give you a little bit of tips and tricks. This will be the first in a couple of tips and tricks series as we go through to kind of help guide new players into how to use certain cards, how to approach certain cards, how to play with certain cards, and most importantly, how they work in matchups. Because matchups is kind of plays a large role in how you approach this game. Alright, so for those that don't know yet, and I think pretty much every DBS player that's not opening their first pack should know, Vegeta's ability says that once per turn during your main, you can choose a card from your life and add it to your hand, and then he gains critical for the duration of the turn. Critical means that when he deals damage to your opponent's life, the life will go to the drop area instead of returning to the hand. So this is obviously a good form of denying your opponent the ability to generate hand advantage when they're losing, an aspect that is commonly overlooked and is found to be very important in being able to survive through long phases of this game. When he flips over, he does essentially the same thing, except if you have 7 or more blue energy, he will also gain 10,000 power, which will turn him into a 25k crit. That's a very dangerous ability, but I don't see it being used as often as I think it should be used, and that's why we're here.
And of course, when he swings, you draw a card from him, like every other leader.
Of course. Just being able to read those words off of a card doesn't necessarily mean that you're approaching it the right way. So, just want to give out a couple of tips. Firstly, when using Vegeta, I think that it's very important that you make every critical count. You really put some priority on the fact that you can deny hand advantage with each successful attack. For example, opening the game and you start off with Vegeta and you go turn 1 and you start summoning a Buu. Buu draws a card. Swing into your opponent for 10k. If your opponent already has a 5k on board, it's safe to assume that he'll combo with it if he doesn't actually value the card, especially if it's something like his own Buu. So make the critical count. If you combo the Buu off, I'm not certain if you need the Buu later, but most of the time you should need turn 1 that early. You combo the Buu off, you may be able to get a prize in a situation where you normally couldn't. Or you could force your opponent more cards out of his hand if he really wants to block it that badly. And in most cases it's not worth it, because if he combos what he has on board, then he just loses anyway. So really value those criticals. Don't just take prizes on the first turn of the game and then pass your turn just because you need more cards in hand. You're gonna get those cards. Trust me. Anybody that's playing against Vegeta is trying to press out Vegeta to try to turn off the critical. So you're gonna get those extra cards. But don't just take prizes and not use critical. Especially when you get to late game. A lot of people's late game Vegetas fall off because it becomes dangerous to utilize his ability because you've taken so much damage or you've taken so many unnecessary prizes. Now that you finally get to 7 blue, you don't have any prizes left to actually use his ability. And 25k critical, draw a card when I attack, almost has to be answered type of card, is very strong late in the game. Especially when you just get it from having 7 mana. You don't have to tap anything, you don't have to summon anybody else, you still have all your threats coming later. It's very, very powerful.
But you do have to pull the prize back and get critical in order to get the 10k boost.
Very important.
What I find to be more effective, what I find to be very effective is to think of Vegeta as if he were a gun and you only got so many bullets. If you run out of bullets, you're in pretty big trouble. So you need to maximize how much you're trading. Because at the end of the day, if your opponent attacks you, they add a card back to your hand. If you attack your opponent, you deny them a card, and they lose a prize, and they're that much closer to death. You can't kill somebody from, you can't continually fail Vegeta's effect in getting the critical, because at the end of the day, you are still killing yourself, and then they are killing you. You can't do that.
Also, the second thing I would like to say, this is very important too. Just as much as I mean when you're valuing your criticals, I mean that you don't want to over prioritize them either. Remember that the standard blue deck also carries critical characters like this Vegeta, this one here, and in some cases it even goes as far as to use these characters, like this Goku, or even God Charge Vegeta. There are a couple more critical options that all share the same color, and it's not a whole lot of justification why you wouldn't play said cards, at least one or two of them, as an option to crit outside of just using your leader. You don't necessarily have to feel like, oh well, I'm out of prizes now, I can't crit my opponent, so I just have to swing in and give them back the advantage. You don't. You can always take your time and utilize your other characters that have critical to deal the damage and save your Vegeta's ability for later when he becomes much more difficult to block. And also, if you do decide to turn off your critical, you can use Vegeta still to attack other characters if you just need to continue drawing cards. And sometimes it is okay if you have to give your opponent one prize back to his hand just so that you can draw some cards. It's not always necessary to have critical on when you're attacking. Though every time you attack with critical, you should really be trying to get it through. Utilizing cards like Champa, for example, as well, also help to really turn up the critical damage that you're dealing, so that even if you decide on first turn, you go from 8 to 7, you swing through, and it doesn't hit through, you can still go later into the game and pick up another prize and make that prize into a double strike. So you're 2 for 2 for the times that you've critted versus the actual number of prizes you've dealt damage to. But really maximizing on how many prizes you're denying your opponent to get back helps to make the match flow much smoother. But don't over prioritize it. You don't have to go down to 1 to stop your opponent from picking up his 5th prize or his 6th prize. No, it's not. It can't be that serious. It shouldn't be that serious. Unless you're pushing for game, there's never really a reason why you should be going down to 1 prize. Maybe your opponent is all double strikers, but it's nothing worse than being everybody on board is lethal.
No.
Very hard situation to deal with. If it's all double strikers, that's a whole different situation. But even still, if you're gonna go to 1, make it count for that turn. Don't think in your mind that you have another turn. Don't hold back.
The second you get down to a scenario where every card on your opponent's board can kill you, you lose any sort of card advantage you may have gained throughout the game. Because every time you have to stop them from killing you, you have to drop cards to do it. It's that simple.
Yeah. Even cards like this one.
Yes.
Become lethal. And you hate having to drop cards to stop something like Majin Buu from killing you, but you're that far from being killed. So be very careful with how often you use your crits and how much you gain from them. The next topic I want to really hit on using Vegeta is making sure that you're not sticking Vegeta onto the front of any deck, but understanding that Vegeta, even though he's a blue leader, he's not the leader of every blue deck. It's not necessary to have all 50 cards behind Vegeta be blue or 40 blues, and he doesn't have to be a blue player. He's not like Frieza. He doesn't have to have all of his color cards behind it. Now, it's great when you have some crits to back him up. You have Energy Boost Beerus in blue. You have Overwhelming Spirit Goku and Assailant Vegeta and Majin Buu, Senzu Beans, Whis' Core. There are a lot of very strong blue cards that make you want to play blue. But it doesn't mean that you have to have Vegeta on the front, and it doesn't mean that it has to be a blue straight through deck. Of course, losing that ability can hurt, but it's not anything that you can't make up for.
Fundamentally, it comes down to purpose. If you need an easy way to awaken, or you need to keep your hand up, Vegeta does that in spades very effectively and easily. His crit is a lot of the times a bonus, a very, very important bonus that you should utilize as well as possible, but you don't have to necessarily do that.
Last topic on using Vegeta. Vegeta is not an aggressive character. Just because his ability denies your opponent advantage does not mean that he has to be push this, summon that, push this, push everything in. He's not that type of character. Vegeta is still a very controlling aspect. Critical is a form of control. It denies your opponent the ability to regenerate lost resources throughout the game. That is a form of control. And though Vegeta can be used aggressively, though it may seem like his style is aggressive because he's taking prizes, swing crit, swing crit, swing crit, that's not the definition of aggro. That is a form of control that is being utilized by a deck so that you can generate more resources than your opponent can later in the game when you flip over, draw 2, swing, draw 1, pick up a prize, take damage, add cards, and then you realize that you've picked up 9 or 10 cards and your opponent only got 2 more from his awakening, and all the other crits denied him. So it's a form of control, and as such, take your time and monitor the pace at which you're going with Vegeta. You don't have to be hyper aggressive. Summon Vegeta, summon my 1-drop, swing with Vegeta, combo 5 million cards, make sure this crit goes through, summon another guy, swing with him, swing with him, swing with him. That's not the style. Blue really has a strong late game. It has a lot of resource management. It has a lot of strong control type attackers that you don't have to rush up into. Make your hits count and don't overdo it. He's not an aggro play. So that'll just about wrap it up for how to use Vegeta. Now going against Vegeta, something that a lot of us should be pretty familiar with now. I'm sure that most locals, most mid, high level events have Vegetas. When I was playing the 1K, I ran into 3 Vegetas just in the opening 5 rounds and then proceeded to prep myself to play another Vegeta in the top 4. Though we didn't actually get to play, I expected to have to run into him again. He's very popular, and I think it's very important to know how to play against him. Looking deeper into the mechanics of the card, he takes a card from your life and adds it to his hand every time he activates his ability. So this is point number 1 that I want to make. Taking life is a form of killing yourself. No matter how slow or how fast you're doing it, every time you use Vegeta, you're putting yourself one step closer to being defeated from your own gains. And so while his critical may be an easy trade-off earlier in the game, it's not really hurting you. When you get down towards the later half of the game, you start counting how many prizes you wish you still had. And it becomes very difficult to defend yourself because everybody is lethal. So the first thing I want to say when you're playing against Vegeta is don't be afraid to pressure him. Pressure the Vegeta, try to turn the critical off as soon as you can. Hit, hit, hit. Don't overextend, of course, because you are going to be being denied hand advantage. You can't give up 3 cards in your hand and then lose 3 prizes. You're not going to make it like that. But anybody that can press him, press him. Use your leader, because you can't stop him from getting the cards unless you're playing a critical mirror or something like that, in which case you may be able to slow down a little and hit him for some crits, but you can't stop him from drawing them. If you don't take him, he'll take them, and every time he takes them, your prizes are in danger. So you might as well pressure him out. He's still going to awaken whenever he wants to. He's still going to draw the extra cards. There's no real stopping that. So don't be afraid to pressure him. Be more concerned about how much damage he deals, more so than how many cards he's gaining. And just try your best to catch up to him by making those crits not hurt you, so that when he does go back to finish you, he has to take those prizes in order to win. So you're gonna get those cards back. You're gonna be able to defend yourself. You don't have to worry about him critting your free 10Ks or critting your late game options or critting your last most important counters. Turn it off as soon as you can. The second thing I want to hit is Vegeta's ability kind of puts him on a timer. And so when you think about it like that, you think that after a certain point in the game, he's going to turn vanilla. And what I mean by vanilla is eventually he's going to turn into a leader that only draws a card when it attacks. Think of some of the leaders that we value as some of the worst leaders in the game, like Green Sun Goku or Hit. What is it that they actually do? When they attack, they have some small, practically unnoticeable effect, and then when they flip over, they draw a card when they attack. Essentially, reading the card straight through, every card has some sort of ability and also draws a card. Any ability is worth more than no ability, and Vegeta essentially becomes no ability after a certain point. It becomes dangerous to take prizes when you're at 2 prizes left, turn 6, turn 7 in the game. Your Vegeta essentially only attacks and draws a card. He doesn't do anything else. So he can quickly become a vanilla. You only have a certain number of shots that you get out of him. The way Corey was saying, you only have a certain number of bullets in that gun. And once it's done, you got to put hands up against the gun, and you know how those type of things tend to turn out. So, very important.
So yeah, when playing against Vegeta, very often you can let Vegeta do your job for you. You don't have to press yourself out to kill him because every time you're swinging out, he wants to conserve those bullets so he can use them against you. Because every prize he takes back is one less crit he can throw out. And if he gets himself down to 2 or 1, now he's in kill shot, and now he has to block everything while still not being able to use his effect. He's very much so a double-edged sword in that way.
Moving forward from that, the next thing I want to point out while we're on the topic of critical is don't over prioritize stopping the critical. Yes, every time that we say stop the critical, turn it off, blah blah blah, utilize the critical, it does essentially mean that you're trying to stop as many of them as you can. But there's no use in comboing 2 or 3 cards out of your hand or all the guys off your board to stop a single critical. You're essentially doing the same thing when you deny yourself the cards from your hand to save the cards that you would lose from prizes. When you get to the late game, it's still going to be very difficult to defend yourself. And just picking up a couple of prizes in the middle of 4 or 5 guys attacking you for potential gain is not going to save you forever. You might get lucky, but you probably don't want to rely on luck to win a match. So don't over prioritize stopping the criticals. It's okay if 1 or 2 of them go through because you don't really have a choice. If he just happens to be up in card advantage and he wants to throw an extra card out or something like that, there ain't a whole lot you can do about it safely. You either lose from your hand or you lose from your life. And which one you want to do, you should be able to decide based on the way the game is going. Can I take this from my life or do I need to take this from my hand, etc.
In simple terms, make him work for it, but don't break your back doing that. You still have to play the game. You still have to gain advantage somewhere. You can't do that if you're comboing your whole hand out trying to stop a Vegeta.
Definitely. And if you're playing against a mono blue Vegeta, it just gets that much worse. You're going to go all the way out of your way to stop the leader Vegeta, and then he's going to drop a Sailor Vegeta. Or then he's going to drop Goku. Or then you're still going to lose because you're going to burn all the cards out of your hand, and he'll drop him on you.
Yeah, that Beerus is just...
Or he'll drop him on you.
This is why you got to make the most of your aggressive plays.
Or he'll drop him on you. He's just going to pick whichever one of his late game cards favors the situation the most, and by the time you're completely burned out, you're going to be looking at 4 cards to 11 cards, 6 cards to 13 cards, and you may feel like your hand is holding up, but how many attacks are you going to hold through? Okay, next thing. This one's really important. Really important. Prioritize the cards in your hand for what they're worth, but make sure that you keep your eye on the board. Vegeta is a very strong leader, but in most cases, unless his crit is off, Vegeta is generally in your leader's face. That doesn't mean, however, that he's not still a leader card. And when he's flipped over especially, that doesn't mean that he's not going to come for your characters. So even though you may feel like you're pressing him out, or you're turning some crits off, you're denying some advantage here and there, don't forget about the fact that all of the characters you're attacking with can be attacked back. So try not to keep your board so far out of control that you can't generate advantage later on. Having 15 cards in your hand is great, but you'd be better off having 10 cards in your hand and 3 able bodies on your board. Your leader shouldn't have to fight Vegeta all by himself. It's just going to make things more difficult. So keep an eye on what you have on play.
The best Vegeta players I've seen usually stop at about 3 prizes and getting the actual effect, unless they're really trying to go for game or really trying to push that advantage out. So usually about that time is where they'll switch over to still wanting to draw that card from their Awaken the Leader's effect. So giving them the opportunity to do that by tapping your guys when you don't need to just gives them that benefit.
Definitely. Again, having the ability to use critical is great, but if crit is off, then Vegeta still wants to draw cards. And if he's trying to deny you advantage and he's not using his critical, who is it that he has to attack if you are monitoring your characters? He only has your leader to attack, so he must give you those cards in order to keep his cards up. And it may not seem like it, but every card plays a crucial role in this game. So drawing a card can be the difference between winning and losing a game, or being able to kill someone in a situation where you normally couldn't. Just as so, being on the outside of the table and getting that one card can be the difference between whether you can or cannot defend yourself from the final push. And it could very well happen at that moment, And all your top characters are dead cards. So keep an eye on your board, more so than you're just watching your Vegeta. Don't get caught in a trance watching Vegeta pick up prizes and tap sideways to attack you.
Yep. Stay away from the Vegeta Genjutsu.
You got one?
Okay. And lastly, Vegeta has a very nice advantage being a blue card and being in a color that really, really utilizes having a number of cards in your hand. Blue, for some odd reason, is designed with cards like these that can turn 1 mana into a 13-card play. So, don't push too hard into him for the final prizes if he's got this in his hand.
Yeah, don't get caught slipping where he swings out and you think, oh, well, I might be able to combo my way out of this. Now, he'll lay his whole hand on the table. Don't let that one blue energy fool you. It can turn quite easily into 3, 4 energies and a whole hand laid on the table. 13 cards.
Sense of being is broken.
13 cards, 110k. Swing at your face for it.
Yeah. And don't forget, he's not on crit. Doesn't mean he's not trying to kill you. Single strikes are very quickly going to turn into double strikes. This deck has the ability to generate those extra cards to make a strong push where a normal deck would lose most of their resources doing it. So if you keep your coercions, use your coercions. Don't burn out on them early in the game trying to stop unnecessary criticals. But don't try to fight a 12 to 13 card war and 3 of the cards in your hands are extras. Because you're probably running into a 12-card combo coming your way with an extra couple of cards coming off top. This deck gets the Piccolo really fast. It's kind of annoying. Really fast, and he's live from like turn 3 on. So you're going to get lots of pressure. Just make sure that if you can negate, negating is usually the better option, and then fight whoever's left. Negate the big guys and fight the small guys if he still has to push some guys. So, there you have it. That'll wrap it up for us. Remember, this is a very popular leader card. He's a very easy card to use, and he's a very simple card to understand. But there are a few small things that make the difference between the good Vegeta players and the great Vegeta players. And there are a lot of Vegeta players. So I feel like it's time to start making good Vegeta players and great Vegeta players go their own separate ways. You're going to run into a lot of Vegeta decks, so anytime you feel like you're struggling, or anytime you feel like you think you could have done something better, or maybe you could have approached it better, or you might have pushed too hard, or you may not have pushed enough, or you let a crit go and it was your 10k that you needed, anything like that, just try to keep these tips in mind. Always here to guide you, and we want to make sure that you have the best matchup you can against the best deck you're going to run into. So thanks, and that'll do it.
Bye.